the timeline has been diabolical. Worst vibes since FTX, I would say, by like very close.
And I'll pull up on the screen, Jack. This was probably the meme of the week, right? This WhatsApp group. I'm probably skipping ahead here, but this is the insane.
There's no order to this, Bilal.
Exactly. So this was, Beanie Maxi been posting a lot about this. This is a WhatsApp group. I haven't verified this, but all vibes, no facts here. So this is apparently a WhatsApp group.
I've seen this on like somewhat legitimate journalistic.
Yeah, it was a website. Yeah, it was like a journalist article. Yeah. But the key line here is, yeah, fellas, to be honest, we're trying to max extract on this one. That's kind of the key phrase. That is in that the phrase max extract is not looking good.
Well, and this guy goes out and posts like an 10-minute video talking about what went tits up, which again, I can't put myself through watching this stuff, but it's basically like we sniped the supply of the coin so nobody else would. And then we're going to put like money back into us. It just sounds like the most obscene explanation ever. And then he goes on CoffeeZilla for an hour, 24 hours later, and basically just like admits to like 20 financial crimes in a row. It's incredible. Makes me cry.
I've recorded. And we're going to keep this whole thing in, Rafa. This is the beginning. Welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. Jack and Trung are already laughing because we're looking at the timelines and it's an absolute joke. Anyway, this is another episode, Not Investment Advice. You got Jack Butcher, Bilal Zaidi Trung Phan. We're going twice. We're going reload. We keep it all in.
By the jokes. We're laughing about this Javier Milei Argentinian president meme coin disaster, which Jack and Bilal are going to talk about. I have no idea what's going on. These guys have been sending me memes all week. I mean, all Sunday, all Monday.
It feels like a week. It's been like 3 days.
Been like 48
Trump
hours.
Coin came out 3 weeks ago.
Is that literally 3 weeks ago? That's mad.
A month ago, yeah. Crazy.
That's crazy. All right, let me just give a preview for what we're going to talk about. So we are going to break that down. You guys have probably seen it in the feeds. There was a coin, there was a rug, basically, Libra, and we're going to break that down. We're going to try to keep it to 5 minutes. Let's see how that goes, because we don't want to give it too much more attention than it's already had. It's a lot of crazy stuff.
I think this is 10 minutes plus.
But most of the episode, we're going to be talking about AI stuff. This was like an AMA question ages ago, and Jack also brought it up. So we're going to talk through how we're all using AI in our day-to-day lives and our work. Jack, obviously, with his visuals and his creative work. Trung's a writer and obviously running his company, Barely AI. And I'll be sharing on my side as well. And then, we'll roll up. There's a few other things. Vibe coding with Cursor. They hit $100 million in 12 months. Amazon being the Switzerland of AI. Let's see how many of those things we get to. But let's start with this Milei stuff. Jack, what is from your side? I know you were following it quite a bit as well. I did listen to the CoffeeZilla interview as well. Did you guys listen to that?
Nah, I've just seen the clips from it. Yeah, couldn't.
All right, but essentially this guy interviewed the guy called Hayden, who is, public enemy number one in that world right now. But maybe we should explain what happened high level.
Jack, let's say how much money was lost. Hayden is supposedly rugged 100 mil plus. Is that about right?
Sorry, now I'm thinking of the video where.
But people, I've seen the number 278 billion.
Is official. 278 million.
Million. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so Jack, walk the listeners through what's going on here, where we are in the meme coin cycle. This sounds like it might be the end of this particular cycle.
Certainly taking some momentum out of it. Well, what was it? 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Trump thing happened, right?
Yeah.
And we covered the Melania thing 24 hours later or 48 hours after that, which basically smashed open the Overton window on quote unquote reputable or at least famous people engaging with this meta. And I know in the last 3 or 4 weeks, there's been dozens of ridiculous headlines, but this is obviously the craziest one. And Javier Milei, is it president of Argentina? Is that correct language? launched and endorsed a meme coin of a similar nature to Trump Melania. So,
wait, Jack. I thought he said he didn't endorse it. He just shared it.
Wait, we'll get to that. Right? We'll get to that now. Yeah,
right.
He didn't promote it. He shared it. That's the party line now.
There we go.
But I think it was launched. I actually did not follow this that much. I have family in town this week, so I was like getting it secondhand. And so this thing was launched. Then he tweets about it, I think a couple minutes after it's like available to buy. And that's obviously when people pile into it, right? It's like, oh, another officially endorsed thing by like a world leader. This has, massive potential to be a huge thing if someone has a platform this size.
Jack, just to add real quick, there was this idea of it was going to fund Argentina's development. I don't know how.
Okay.
That was an idea.
I
don't
see
know
that. That's part of the.
That is a bit of a difference.
That's part of the language in what he tweeted, right?
Because the Trump coin was strictly, this is like a collectible, right? You go to the website, is like, this is not an investment. But exactly, I think that is a key difference here because it adds to the rugging. Because if you bought Trump coin and you got rugged, it says right there on the website, this is not an investment. But I think keep playing that up. Yeah.
I don't know if he tweeted that out. Because I think he was tweeting out in Spanish, no? So I don't, there was like translation. I'm just going off a summary tweet that I read. It said coin aims to fund Argentina's development. Anyway. But yeah, you can keep going.
So it's launched in, like, the launch partner is this firm called Kelsia Ventures, which the guy who runs it lives in LA, like does business under his real name, has met with all these people publicly, there's pictures of him relationship with
this is Hayden,
Millet. Right? Yeah, so he's had contact with these people. So that even that implies that this was a, quote unquote real or like legitimate thing. And then I think 10 minutes after it launches, they launch it with a single-sided liquidity pool, and then they pull like 100 million out of it or something. And obviously the price just starts tanking. This is a couple hours, I think, maybe not even, half an hour after this thing hits $4.5 billion market cap. And then what happens after that? Price goes, just basically tanks. The timeline here is from 5 p.m., this chart, to 11 o'clock at night. The high was $4.5 billion market cap, and then by 11 o'clock it was 200 million.
Oh my goodness!
So 90%, 95% of a market cap
in a few hours
raised in 4 hours. So obviously shitloads of people lost money, right? Like an ungodly amount of people lost money on this, except for the guys who were launching it and controlling the liquidity and pulling money out instantly. And
how much did they own? That was a red flag, right? The number of wallets that controlled the supply.
I don't know the specifics on that, but a lot. 95% of supply, it says in here, yeah.
Oh my God.
95% of suppliers unlocked to insiders and team, and they obviously given this to other people. I think they gave some to Dave Portnoy. Like, just a ridiculous story. And just, this in the 48 hours since, like, the timeline has been diabolical. Worst vibes since FTX, I would say, by like very close.
And I'll pull up on the screen, Jack. This was probably the meme of the week, right? This WhatsApp group. I'm probably skipping ahead here, but this is the insane.
There's no order to this, Bilal.
Exactly. So this was, Beanie Maxi been posting a lot about this. This is a WhatsApp group. I haven't verified this, but all vibes, no facts here. So this is apparently a WhatsApp group.
I've seen this on like somewhat legitimate journalistic.
Yeah, it was a website. Yeah, it was like a journalist article. Yeah. But the key line here is, yeah, fellas, to be honest, we're trying to max extract on this one. That's kind of the key phrase. That is in that the phrase max extract is not looking good.
Well, and this guy goes out and posts like an 10-minute video talking about what went tits up, which, again, I can't put myself through watching this stuff, but it's basically like we sniped the supply of the coin so nobody else would, and then we're going to put like money back into us. It just sounds like the most obscene explanation ever. And then he goes on CoffeeZilla for an hour, 24 hours later, and basically just like admits to like 20 financial crimes in a row. It's incredible. It's unbelievable, really.
Jack, you know what we've all talked about this on the show about how like the urge to post and like the urge for engagement is just, that pull is so insane. Imagine committing what may or may not be a crime, but you rugged over $100 million at least, and then you can't not go on the biggest podcast for investigation.
Yeah, because CoffeeZilla, for people who don't know, basically does these investigative things on rugs and scams, and he does an incredible job of digging into this, like going on the chain, calling stuff out. And then on top of that, there's the kind of barbell here. You got him going deep, and then you got Dave Portnoy, which is Mr. Attention, Mr. Having fun, and he's asking him ridiculous questions like, well, whose money is this? And there's that clip going around. It's become a bit of a meme where he starts stuttering, and it's a great. Are you pulling up here? Oh no, what's this? This is
Jack, what does this mean?
Keep going, Bilal. I'm just putting this up for context. This is the amount of money that was lost, like verified on-chain losses.
71,000 people lost up to $10,000.
Damn.
Yeah.
25 people lost more than $1 million. Yo, bro.
This is wild. Again, I will say, going into this, everyone knows this is a casino, right? Like, I think you kind of need to know that going in, but there's a difference between straight up casino versus straight up manipulated market. It's already ridiculous as it is, but if you've actually got manipulation going in, and there was some weird
just
stuff,
the severity of this being tied to like a governmental like entity is just mental beyond belief.
Exactly.
Right? There's plenty of like stupid shit going on. I mean, this even attached to some like idiotic animal coin would be ridiculous, right? It would be like frowned upon behavior. But the reason this thing ran to what it did in such a short amount of time is because it was attached to this seemingly legitimate.
Well, who's an all-star too, right? In like libertarian kind of
economic
like the turnaround of Argentina's economy is like a big story.
Guys, can I read his official message? So Javier Milei, who again, for people for context, we've mentioned him briefly on the show, and Bilal, you lived in Argentina briefly under the previous government. Argentina famously for decades has had problems with inflation, government overturn, it's just mismanaged economy. Javier Milei comes in, cuts all the departments, subdues inflation.
With the chainsaw
and like says he's going to bring back investment to Argentina, make it an attractive place, because Argentina is blessed, right? Blessed with land, natural resources, beef. So much beef, son. 100 years ago, Argentina
that's true,
had the same GDP as I think almost near America, and people were like, "Oh, this thing might overtake like England," because look at it. It was in the same time zone.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, beautiful place, and
everything beautiful. Yeah,
everything beautiful.
Go to the north, hit that wine country. It's a good life there.
Oh my goodness, dude. So let me read.
But anyway, keep reading what he said.
This is from Tier 10K Twitter account. Yeah, posted in English. So this is so this whole thing's absurd. Milei, I didn't promote it. I shared it. Okay, so that's the first thing he says. Some other lines he said.
Lads.
I acted in good faith and I took a hit. He goes, did the state of Argentina lose money? No. Did Argentinians lose money? Maybe 4 or 5 people at the most.
That's insane.
The vast majority of investors are Chinese and American. I shared this the same way I've shared hundreds of things. My tweet came just 3 minutes after the coin was created because I'm passionate about these things and found out about it. These are volatility traders who knew what they were doing. Hayden Davis, so in boxes, so maybe he can come out directly, proposed creating a structure to finance entrepreneurs due to informality, lack of funding options. When Libra, which is the name of the coin, is that right?
Yeah.
When Libra became public, I helped spread the word. It's false that 44,000 people were affected. At most, it's 5,000. That sounds wrong, right? Jack just pulled up.
Based on what Jack shared, yeah.
The chances of there being Argentinian involved are very slim. These are highly specialized individuals in this type of financial instrument. Those who got involved knew the risk very well. They're volatility traders. This is a private matter between individuals. Man, I don't know if it'll stay a private matter between individuals.
Yeah.
I didn't promote it. I shared it. I did it because I'm a diehard techno optimist. Any initiative that improves financing for tech entrepreneurs interests me. So, I mean, he got if we're being serious.
He did get got, yeah.
Let me read Arthur Hayes, actually. So that Arthur Hayes quote tweeted that. He goes, I didn't promote it. I shared it. This is the line of the cycle. It might be better than Steady Lads from Do Kwon.
That's a great line. I will say,
go ahead,
because, we're not going to go through line by line. The other key things that came out in CoffeeZilla, just to mention, though, Hayden appears to have shared that he was involved with the Melania coin launch and other pump and dump schemes, essentially. And the other thing he shared, which isn't confirmed, but he had heard, so again, hearsay, he claims insiders knew about Trump and they were allowed to buy $500 million pre-launch at the crypto dinner, which we obviously talked about, the event in DC where everyone was posting these videos online. And we covered obviously the Trump coin launch a few weeks ago when it happened, but that ran up crazy, like probably record breaking, meme coin. I think it pretty much was. And then obviously 48 hours, this Melania coin dropped. So it's not looking good overall, right? Like there's just Jack's laughing because he's thinking of Castello not looking good, bro.
It's not looking. I love Bilal. Like the greatest Bilal saying it's not looking good is the equivalent in degree of Do Kwon saying Steady Lads. Yeah, it looks awful, bro.
It looks terrible.
Let me throw some curveballs here because I know Jack didn't want to dwell on this issue so much because before the recording, Jack's like, guys, this is the same every time. People get run. Yeah. These cycles are moving so fast. We don't want to give too much oxygen to this story.
I agree.
But I think talking about the meta is kind of interesting because Arthur Hayes, Arthur Hayes is the new Ben Thompson. Once a month, we talk about him. He had a great piece last week. He basically said every government or official will end up launching a meme coin in the future. This is his prognosis. Even after what happened to Javier Milei, because his whole point is the game theory around meme coins is actually kind of insane. It's basically free money for the person raising, if you do it the Trump way, not the Javier Milei way. Because it doesn't sound like Javier was directly related to Libra. And they didn't set out clear ways for the money to end up for quote unquote Argentinian entrepreneurs. But Arthur Hayes' whole point is think about how a meme coin functions, right? We're looking for truth in this world. And the polling industry, which we talked about for the elections, has underperformed recently, right? Because when you poll people traditionally, they just don't really want to tell you. The last 3 cycles has basically had what's called the shy Trump voter effect. You call someone, you'd be like, yo, who are you voting for? They don't want to say Donald Trump, maybe because their partner's sitting right next to them, or they're just not going to say Trump, right? So the guy on Polymarket that made 100 million on the election, he does something where a type of polling where you actually just ask, oh, who do you think your neighbor will vote for, right? Because if you're clustered around it, you can figure out with pretty high probability, if you say, oh, your neighbor's going to vote for Trump, probably means the guy you're calling is going to vote for Trump, right? But the whole point is you're trying to find truth. And market, as Jack likes to mention, it's a signal, right? It's information. The financial markets are supposed to transmit information. When it does it poorly, that's when you get some wild things happening or wild opportunities. Goes both ways, losses and opportunities. What Crypto Hayes is saying is that meme coins are an incredible type of truth instrument for politicians. Because if you are a Trump supporter, right, and you think he's going to win an election, you're going to buy that meme coin in the expectation he's going to win that election, right? You don't have to tell anyone. You're buying it. It's not public. But if you have strong conviction that he'll win an election, you'll buy it with the expectation that coin's going to go up based on the meme and the attention, right? And if you think that Trump won't win, you short it or you find ways to take the other side of the trade, right? No one actually has to say anything publicly. The information's all in that trade. I mean, you could do that in other ways with financial markets, right? Like, Trump will deregulate, so you'll buy banks. right? You buy financial institutions, but that's not as direct of a trade.
Or you bet on like Polymarket or the prediction market.
But meme coins are even more direct into, actually, no, similar, right? It's the same idea. Polymarket and meme coins. Perhaps meme coins have more liquidity. And also,
supposedly you're not supposed to use Polymarket in the US either.
Right.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're not supposed to. Yeah.
Well, Kalshi.
Or Kalshi or whatever else people use.
But the point is, you understand what I mean? Is like, you wouldn't buy Trump coin if you didn't think he was going to win or you didn't support him, right? So that's actually that liquidity is a pretty direct.
I don't know
message.
about the support. I think plenty of people
buy.
Think
he's going to get?
He's
going to never not have attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You buy it because
in the game
it's going to go up
attention.
too, right? Yeah. But he's saying apply this to any other politician. If AOC launched a coin, you're right. I might not support her policies, but I might buy it because I think she's a really good politician, as in a really good attention hacking politician. And you buy, so it's revealing information. That's Arthur Hayes' argument for why he thinks especially as Jack said, Overton window is blasted wide open now. The most powerful person in the world has a meme coin, right? The most powerful politician in the world. So the Overton window is open on that. But now you do the game theory. So if like your political opponent does it and you don't, you're kind of leaving money on the table, right? So I think
but you could also say, Trunk, you could also say though that the reputational damage it's doing, like I think the Trump coin kind of works, like we've already forgotten about it pretty much in a few weeks, right? I'd say like if a Democrat did it, I don't know if it would have the same reaction. And then also if it was a legit like dump or there was insiders like was being reported, I think there's a lot more damage that can be done. And especially after it happened several times, and I think people would be like, well, the last 5 times that happened, it got rugged, because ultimately it will always happen pretty much, right?
It will always get rugged, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a zero-sum game in this case. So,
well, here's what Arthur Hayes says. He tweeted this morning, directly addresses what you said. He says, the game is the game. Obviously, I think meme coins are a net benefit, but if you're a politician and you rug your supporters, there might not be consequences within crypto, but your political career will take a hit. Exactly.
Yeah, that's basically what I was saying, yeah.
But he still says, in his opinion, it's still worth it. Depends on whether you value your supporters or not. What he means is like, yeah, he's playing out the game theory. And exactly to Bilal's point, there's the other side of the game theory, which is reputational risk. I think I'm going to go, I agree with what Bilal's saying, but I'm leaning more to, if I had to make a wager, I'd say in 5-10 years, the political meme coin is more of a, it's a standard.
More them than less.
Because it's like a donation, right? So like a political donation in a way.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
And yeah, so I'm gonna take this side. Like we're not necessarily disagreeing with each other, but it's where we stand on kind of the confidence on where this might go. But very fair point.
Yeah. Jack, anything else on that before we move on? Thanks for breaking that down, man. Good. That was great. I will say, if we had skipped it, it's quite a big thing. It's very NIA to cover this. It
has to be acknowledged, unfortunately.
Yeah, we need it on the record, put it on chain, as you'd say. Exactly. So, the only thing I would say is if you're really interested, check out the CoffeeZilla interview. I will say it's a little bit of a, like I felt after listening to it, I'm like, man, I just want to sell everything, basically. Yeah. Because it's just like it's quite refreshingly honest, because he's in this state where he keeps saying, I shouldn't be saying this, but then he says it. And then there's a few, I was actually, this is super early in the morning when it came out. I couldn't sleep. So I was like listening to it. And he said, it's all dog shit. It's value extracting. And he's not just talking about his thing. He's talking about all crypto pretty much. He was even going all the way to Bitcoin pretty much. And his argument was you can't make money without fraud pretty much. And that's how I was hearing it, which I don't agree with, but that was kind of where his head was at. And then the last thing I'll say, CoffeeZilla did a really good job of comparing it to things that aren't as zero sum. So for instance, he talked about stocks, Apple and Coca-Cola, having dividends or having real products and services, obviously, versus something that's just a pure casino, basically. So I thought that was worth listening to. If you're really interested, you should give it a shout. But otherwise, should we move on, boys, to the AI part of the
part?
Let's do it.
All right, the question was high level, how are we all using AI in our day-to-day work or lives? However, I guess if you just look at your week, what were the last few times you used it and what for? Maybe we start with Jack if you want, because you are Mr. Visualize Value. I'm also curious on the art side, how you're using it.
Hey, I use it for a ton of stuff. Like I can't even, there's probably no part of what I do that doesn't touch now. Every single
That's
thing.
That's amazing.
One thing I love the most, like for different models or different applications, I find like way different use cases. I think ChatGPT's not context window in terms of how it produces an output, but the context that it carries from one conversation to the next. Like Claude doesn't do that as far as I know. And I think it's like, you can set up a project environment and give it context, upload a PDF, whatever, and come back to that conversation. But ChatGPT, you can have 50 conversations with it. And then in the 51st conversation, you can ask it anything about the last 50.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, that in my mind is what people completely overlook about AI. And maybe it's like way more specific to me in how I spend my time and what I do for a living. But it can make connections between stuff in my artistic practice or in the work that I've uploaded to try and get different tiers of explanation for something. I find it the most insane, incredible tool.
That's very helpful, right?
For writing specifically. And I know that output, a lot of writing output from an AI is like, you can tell that it's an AI, but I actually think that is more true if you aren't really pointed and precise with what you're asking it about. If like you're trying to like generate some article about something you don't know about, you're going to be able to tell that that's like slop, right? If it's trying to describe the connection between work that you've done or things that you've referenced, it's kind of, what's that Gell-Mann amnesia paradox? You ever heard of that?
Yeah, Michael Crichton talked about the physicist, his physicist friend.
Break it down. What is it?
Well, Jack, you want to break it?
You might have a better explanation than me. My understanding of it is you could be an expert in one field and you read a newspaper article about something you have no expertise in. You're like, oh, that's legit. That's amazing. That makes sense. And then you turn the page and there's something about the field that you're an expert in. You're like, this is complete bullshit. But you don't make the connection that the previous thing you read is bullshit too. Yeah.
It's the same level of expertise. No, it's, the examples he used was he's a physicist. I believe Gell-Mann was a physicist. It's called the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. To Jack's point, the amnesia is that you forget that when you're reading something you're an expert in. I believe he was like, I'd read a part about the Middle East and I'd be like, oh, wow, really interesting coverage about the Middle East. And then they'd have a piece in the science section about literally my expertise, and they were completely wrong. And I'm like, oh, but the Middle East stuff must be correct.
No, that's a great one. I feel like
he's
that
saying
on
that you don't
reading
lose
X
trust
all the time.
He's just like you. He doesn't lose trust. He's like you're like you because you don't even think about it. But Jack, that is such an interesting point about the. Yeah, dude, it's a prompting skill. That's what people always say. It's a skill issue. If you don't learn how to prompt the AI properly, and the way you prompt it, I think Jack, you alluded to it. You got to keep hitting it with questions. You treat it like a 21-year-old analyst, right? Mm-hmm. You just hit it with questions until it really teases out exactly what you want. And
you have to train it. Like you have to really be like, no, that's wrong. I want something more specific. Or I use this phrase quite a lot, but like, pretend you are this. And I don't know if that helps, but like it helps for me anyway. Just it feels more specific.
I like to say, pretend you're a 21-year-old McKinsey analyst who got the job because your uncle is a director at the consultancy and you have no qualification.
Very accurate that way, yeah. But yeah, sorry, Jack. So writing, it seems like you use it a lot.
I've used it for a bunch of stuff. Like I have had it write. So I will say, I'm presenting this project at this event or art fair or whatever else. Like give me like the most brutal critique from an art critic you possibly can with everything you know about this. Like great. This is the most cliche, terrible bullshit I've ever seen. Like you're like trying too hard doing this. And there's so many different tiers in between that where like you guys know who Sahil Lavinia is, the guy that started Gumroad.
Yeah, Gumroad, yeah.
He's like fully all in AI engineering, running the company. Like I think very few human beings in the loop now there. They're like, he's all in on it. And he has this great tweet that I think sums this up. He said, AI doesn't think for you, it writes for you. And that, I think, gets to the crux of it. It's like the quality of the inputs, but even that I don't think is really uncovering the potential of it, because you're comparing it to something like a search engine, right? If you're trying to create something like something net new, or you're trying to like bring an idea into fruition, isn't just like, I can't really put myself in the shoes of, say, like you're trying to write an essay with it, right? Like if you're a student and you're trying to write an essay with it, I imagine it just gives you like mediocre bullshit, because you're also like trying to skip the work by doing that, right? That your intent is like very different than how does this like make the process actually more comprehensive than less. It's like, let me type 10 words and get 1,000 words back, versus like, I think the real value that I've gotten from it is like unearthing connections between things. Where I'll be like, thematically, how would you connect this project to that project? How would you tell somebody that doesn't understand any of this universe of stuff that I've made how to talk about it? And it is like, I think it takes that, like, one mental model for it is like, would you rather have your chat GPT history leaked, or your Google search history leaked? And I feel like
question. Well,
I feel like the chat GPT stuff and the large language model stuff, the stuff that people divulge to that, like, you're giving it way richer information.
It's like a conversation. Yeah,
it's crazy the level of detail and the like transparency that obviously that increases the quality of your answers, what you're willing to divulge. So I've used it for like hyper descriptive stuff like that, but I've also like written little pieces of software that would previously be impossible for me to write. Like I have to hire somebody.
You're right. You're using the software features.
So some of it, yeah, like I will, like there's a couple projects I did last year that were visual, like there's a JavaScript language called P5, which basically allows you to set these parameters for an artwork and then give it a random seed and it will produce a unique output every time. So you could just talk to it and say, this is what I want those parameters to be. This is how it should look. Give me the code. I'll look at the code. I want to change this, this, and this. Give me the code again. And that was like something that I had an aspiration to learn from like 5-6 years ago. Like I'm going to sit down take a couple of weeks off and try and learn that from first, and there definitely would have been value in me doing that. Probably would have made me exponentially more proficient. Now I have the automation on top of it, but allowed me to skip so many steps in visualizing those things. And then I've used it for like, I have like an image prompt that I want to get 10,000 outputs for. I'll use Claude for that stuff instead of ChatGPT. It seems to be a little bit better.
Make no mistakes.
You make no mistakes. Build me a $10 million SaaS. Make no mistakes.
Yeah.
Make no mistakes is also up there as the line of the year.
Jack, I wanted to jump on something you said. If I were to summarize what you're saying about your usage of AI, it's an ideation machine, right? It's like its ability to do analogies and connections and like, hey, give me previous examples. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, somebody actually wrote, thinking is now a 2-player game, or it's not a singular. Yeah, that is another thing that's really interesting. Is like the parrying or the rallying of ideas. It's like everybody's experienced that in a personal setting too, where it's like, have the right creative partner, you can make something that's 1 + 1 is 3 or 4 or 5 in that scenario, versus like going round and round in your head. I think people underestimate the unlocks that can come from just sparring like that.
No, it's unbelievable, man. The people that say they don't know how to use AI or say there's no value, there's clearly value. Is it worth $1 trillion in capex and all this funding we're getting right now? Maybe not. Maybe they won't get the return. But guess who wins? We do. Yeah. The consumer, dude. If this was as far,
it was. You were saying capex, capex like Donair, innit? That's why I was to add that to the list. No, you actually had a place called Donair, to be fair. But
yeah, for sure, Donair dudes. If this is as far as AI gets, and this is coming on the heels of Grok 3 was launched yesterday, and remember Grok from XAI, Elon's AI company. they have this, and now they have a 200,000 H100 cluster, so 200,000 of these NVIDIA chips in Memphis. So they apparently, this new model Grok 3 is outperforming. This is from Andre Karpathy, who we've mentioned. Obviously, he was former Tesla AI, but he also co-founded OpenAI. He says it looks like by the rankings, some people are not sure if these rankings still matter as much before. Like it's on math, like reasoning and language in general. But it looks like Grok 3, pure scaling in 18 months, has built a frontier model that leads the top, right? And the point I'm trying to make is if this is all that AI ever is, stops here, we would still spend the next 5 to 10 years in white collar information knowledge work, learning how to integrate this improvement, to Jack's point, PvP, parrying, knowledge partner. The unlock from that will be massive. It's going to be massive. So I say if we stop there. Yeah, go ahead, Jack.
I don't buy I don't buy that it's not step function, order of magnitude, massive improvement. Just because I think you have to like have felt the effects in a certain way to appreciate that too, right? I think people who are, who have very specific careers or skill sets that you can watch like how much more proficient this is at the labor or the assembly of these things. Like there's so many well articulated points of view on this where it's like this doesn't like stop the act of programming or replace programming. It's like it just gives the most insane amount of leverage to a certain tier of contributor, right? It's like the ability for you to produce at a speed that was not possible a year ago, which is true. I think is true of all majority of like leaps technical progress. It's like just enables everybody to do more, right? I think in the short term there is definitely painful adjustment to jobs where these things do get intelligent enough to do a as good as or better job as somebody in a system that is not yet optimized. But there's also technologies that exist now that could be installed in many hundreds of thousands of millions of businesses that are not. It's like it's not like we are the uber efficient as a species in that way either. So more leverage to these 10,000x contributors is like a real and massive benefit in the short term.
I want to jump on that. I do agree. Like I just said, if we stop now, we still have to work through it, but I don't think it'll stop. I agree on that. And I think there's going to be some pain. Unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of white collar pain. And, but the point is, everyone can do something about it. Every single person now can learn how to get good with AI. Learn how to parry, like Jack
it's
said.
Like the new learn to code, right? Like it was, what was that thing before?
Even more accessible, right?
A lot more accessible, yeah.
Yeah, way more accessible, which also means there's more competition. And I agree with the saying that AI won't take your job. Somebody that's good with AI will take your job. I think that's is the summary. Best way to think about that. Until, listen, is there a world where, AGI comes and just smokes every human at every single task? Yes, which means we got to really focus on the EQ stuff. Economist Tyler Cowen, he's been on a bit of a podcast tour about what to do in a world of AI, and he's talking about how he's changing his life. So I'll point out two things, which he said are very smart. The first one, he says he's writing for AI now, as in he's writing so that the AI will pick up his stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart, right? It's like he wants when somebody in 20 years writes, "Hey, what do you think Tyler Cowen would think about this?" And it'd be like, it'd actually know, right? So writing for AI probably means, hey, you got to do more volume. You got to write more, share your thoughts more, and actually be authentic. So this speaks to it. If you just take, like Jack said, a really badly prompted slop, like a 10-word, write me an A+ essay, no mistakes. Like if you take that and you put that under your name, you're not training the AI. You're training the AI if you're putting literally your own words under your names, spelling mistakes or like run-on sentences, and just how you write and the best way I believe how you write is how you talk. That's how I try to write. And we can, when I get to the section how I use AI, I'll explain that more. So he says, write to understand that the AI will pick up your stuff. And in 10 years, the default is not going to be Google search now. Or if it is, it's going to be Google Gemini. It's going to read what you've done and regurgitate that back in a way. But if you want the AI to understand you, you should write in volume and with your own voice. The other thing he said is he's doing this stuff. He's personally spending more time doing things that AI can't do. So he says he's networking a lot more now. He's doing a lot more podcasts. He's like, I'm just going to do stuff that I'm not going to get wiped out at by AI, which is actually a really smart way to approach it, right? So we joke about NIA doing this, like, well, yeah, if we get bored, we'll drop. I actually think right now, to lay down the gauntlet, I don't think we should give up NIA because this will be much harder for AI to copy. It's one of the lasting
things, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, no, but literally, like, AI, I hate to say it, AI is going to get, like, I'm already seeing it able to write jokes the way I do, because jokes are formulaic, right? Like, I'll give you one simple example. One of the go-to Trung Phan jokes, if you ever read any of my essays, is you make a long list and the last thing on the list is doesn't belong. It's something absurd, right? And that works in humor because humor, like you have an expectation, right? Yeah, and misdirect and it's broken. AI can do that. AI can do that all day now, right? It's not that hard to make a list of 4 things that are similar, as we were talking with Jack, and then the 5th thing is completely out there. Like, that is humor 101. AI can do that. So, but can it riff like us and like bring back these callbacks that we had? Maybe, but maybe not in audio and maybe not for 10, 15 years.
Maybe people listen to AI right now and they don't even know, Trunk.
Maybe they don't.
We're all on vacation.
Maybe this entire episode was the biggest con ever. How to use AI. Yeah, we're using it right now.
I mean, that would be... No, I mean, no, you're right. I do think that's...
So what do you think about those two things? So to summarize, he says, write for the AI. So actually build your own voice, have some confidence in it, and because you want to be able to stand out. And that means not sounding like some regurgitated slop, right? Number 2 is do things that AI can't do. Networking, audio, EQ, in person. Do a lot more of that. And if you care about professional, right? This is a form of professional fun. So
yeah, and use the tools so that you're useful. Because the truth is, most people aren't going to be using these for a while. Like, it takes such a long time. Like, most people, when you speak to them, aren't using the tools in the way that Jack just described.
Totally.
Like, that level is already top 5-10% of people.
Yeah.
So if you can do that, you can definitely help people. The same way 10, 15 years ago, we were helping people trying to get onto the internet for the first time, trying to do e-commerce, trying to get ads going, trying to do social media. Like, there was layers to it, making apps. Like, this is the new version of that. And like, it's not hype. Like, this is legitimate stuff. Like, there is maybe a slight bubble in the valuations, like you said, but you're seeing the real use cases. This is not just like everything's going to be on a blockchain and we're going to look for 15 years for use cases and then now the use case is meme coins. Like, this is actually, legitimate stuff. So that was a good summary.
Bilal, why don't you tell us how you use it?
Yeah, well, and I just had one last question for Jack. Is there anything on the visuals that you're using? Because I know, I don't know if you got any examples or anything, because you obviously have your visualized value template. Is it something that it can help with even stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting, there's like a couple different layers I played with it on that front, is like, has the whole archive, all the different ideas, all the visuals, all the like themes.
This is ChatGPT, I take it, yeah?
Claude and ChatGPT, I have like
So you upload all the images.
And then over the last year or 18 months, it's gotten insanely better at this stuff. Like that was when the stuff first came out. It's like really nascent. That was the arrogant, like, it's never going to be able to do anything like this I'm doing. And it's gotten so much better in terms of like,
it's never going to be able to do the things I'm doing.
Look at, like, read these ideas.
So special,
here's 100 ideas that have influenced these visuals. The first use I would like spend time trying to find new themes. Like, give me things that are adjacent to this, that would be complementary to this body of work, and then kind of go down the rabbit hole and find the ideas that way. And then,
Jack, do you put the caption too? I take it, yeah, because then it's like text with the associated
caption. But even now, it's gotten smart enough now where I can upload a visual and say, write a caption for this. Like, what is this trying to communicate?
Oh, wow.
And there's like,
that's sick.
8 times out of 10, it gets it has a decent take on it, which makes
your
sense,
ones
right?
are quite smart too. It's not just like super obvious. I mean, I'm curious. I'm trying to think, because to me, like a lot of people, there's different levels of your ones, but like when you see your stuff and you're that sort of person who gets your sort of stuff, you get it straight away and it's like obvious. To some people, I see even on Instagram comments, they're like, oh, I need someone to explain this one to me. Like it's different to Twitter, for example. And the fact that the GPT can actually understand that is actually pretty impressive.
Insane. And then I've done give me an idea for a visual within these constraints that explains this idea. And because it has all the context, sometimes it'll be like, what about this? What about this cluster of shapes shaped this way versus
wow.
an edited version of it. And some of it is basic, but there's really again, it's like that parry unlock where it's like, if it gives me even 10% of a suggestion that I wouldn't have had myself, it feels like I'm getting more information and finding a...
You can run with it from that.
Yeah,
input.
yeah.
And that last 10% is a huge unlock, right? Like you could sit there for 3 hours or a week and
Well,
never
you were
have
saying
that.
even the first 10%, Jack, right? Or as seed of an idea.
It's kind of both. It's also the idea that it can connect patterns in a way that you might not be able to. So I would say of all of I haven't done this to the degree of specificity that I could, but you could give it a CSV, right? And say, here's all the images, here's the interactions, here's this, this, and this. Which ones of these tend to be more resonant? Which messages are breaking through more than others? And I'm hesitant to totally rely on that because it's, there's some incalculable thing there too. But it does point you at patterns that you miss. It'll be these 2 or these 3 ideas have maybe this theme in common, and this might be why they resonate more than these others. And then it can assemble visuals too. That was not possible a while ago. And these are LLMs. I also use some image models. I have trained custom models on all of the visualized value stuff.
Which one?
Oh, wow.
Which one?
The
best one, I've done a bunch of stuff in Stable Diffusion. That's what I started on. ControlNet, which is a subset feature of Stable Diffusion where you can give it a shape and it will fill it. And these are all bitmap, photographic. You can give it a silhouette and say, paint this in this style with this object, whatever. And the one I've been using recently is Flux. You guys know Flux, the image model?
Yeah, I've heard of Flux, but I've never used it because there's no reason for me to ever use these days.
and this one is crazy because I've been able to give it a visualized value archive, and then just have it produce these new images that would kind of be meaningless, right? It'd be it can't write captions because they'll just be jumbles of letters, but you can get these visual compositions that then imply something that you didn't even think of originally, So can almost do the process backwards, where this thing can draw an assembly of shapes or patterns, and then you're like, oh, what does that represent? I've done some stuff with this where I've inverted the order. So I did this, I think I showed you boys, did that photography show in Paris in November last year, and actually had the Claude name the pieces.
Oh, that's sick. I didn't realize that.
So you kept the names that they gave?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you give it a little bit of a constraint. Say I want it to be 2 words, and here's some thematic context. It has the context of the project because it co-wrote the description of the project and the press release, and all this just has this massive context window, and then literally give it the image and say, now name this, and spit out 2 words. There's 80 images total. Don't use any word twice. It's just it's nuts, honestly.
Make no mistakes. Don't use any words twice.
No mistakes.
And it still does, but man, is it a good assistant, man?
That's
crazy.
Amazing, man. I didn't realize you did that. It's because I know you're obviously very technology forward and you use all these tools as part of your work. But I bet if you spoke to 10 in air quotes artists or creative, like traditional creative types, which I'm sure you have plenty of friends in that realm. I bet a lot of them would feel a lot of resistance to this sort of stuff.
They hate
right?
it, yeah. Almost everybody hates it. So there's a big controversial thing happening right now.
Divide.
There's an auction happening at Christie's in a month or so, and they have like 4 or 5 massive profile AI artists selling work at Christie's. And there's a petition going around for people saying Christie's is killing art. These artists aren't real artists. This art isn't real art. I'm going to put my name on this petition. Like you're killing art as a concept by doing this. And the main argument is like these models have been trained on copyrighted material, right? And it's like a really fascinating philosophical debate. It's like you cannot make anything in a vacuum, right? Like any artist, any writer, any musician is like, go and compose me a song if you've never heard any music. You can't do it. Like it really is like a mechanical debate. Like, oh, this
it's basically what is art, essentially, right?
Because this machine can eat everything that's ever been produced, but it still can't make something until you tell it what to make. And if you said like, hey, do a copy of the Mona Lisa, that thing will be totally worthless, have zero value, doesn't mean anything, unless it's part of some sophisticated commentary that people understand and care about. And like the more this stuff gets commoditized, the more weight, I think, people were talking about this in the 60s, right? People think like Andy Warhol was a joke at the time. Like, oh, he's just like ripping posters. Like these are the same thing in different colors. But that's the whole thing he was commenting on. Like this is, art is a commodity. I can change the color of this and then go sell it at auction for X. And it's crazy because there's so much nuance to how it's done too. Like some of these models have those characteristics, some of them don't. Some of the people selling work at Christie's have built their own models, or the output isn't like specifically trained on any particular type of work. But people have a violent reaction to it. It's like the NFT thing. Basically everything I'm interested in, boys, like the average person on the street thinks is the worst fucking invention to have ever existed.
What I'd say, Jack, the interesting thing is because you have a history as well of doing this yourself, it's not like, if let's say I turned up and I was like, I've actually done creative stuff too, so it's not like I'm starting completely from scratch. But let's say someone just comes off of the street and is like, oh, I'm an AI artist, I just prompted this thing and I put it and I'm trying to make lots of money, and that's clearly the motivation. Versus you, who's got like a history of using these tools and being early with NFTs and having a commentary on what NFTs are, etc. I'm just thinking of it works a lot better for someone like you because you can just extend that message and you're commentating on what's happening.
I think I think that's like the fundamental flaw is like people think art is like the image you make. It's like this total nonsense. And it's like, it's inherited from 400, 500-year-old practice, right? It's like somebody sitting there like mixing paint and producing this gorgeous oil landscape. There's like complete beauty to that, and it's incredible. And the same thing is true in a lot of digital work. Like people laboring meticulously over the process of creating the image, and you can obviously add meaning to it and make that this beautiful, amazing thing. And I guess to write off an entire set of technologies as being, invalidating any product that comes out of it as something that cannot be considered art or valuable or whatever else. I don't know. To me, it seems short-sighted. It'll be, history will be the judge.
Yeah, it's about the creator. I just want to jump on one thing that Jack said. Here's the entire point. It ultimately is about the creator. That's what people care about.
That's what I was about to ask. Like, what is the contrast to what you described there, Jack, as people think it's about the piece of art, like the painting or whatever?
I'll give a very
Jack
simple.
Trung, you're probably saying the answer, so go for it.
Well, let's give a very simple example. It's happening right now. Somebody found what looks to be a Van Gogh in a garage. You guys see this? A couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they're paying, I think, up to $50,000 to have it validated. And the difference between whether or not that's a Van Gogh or not is $30 million. If it's not a Van Gogh, it's worth zero, and they spent $50K. If it's a Van Gogh, it's worth $30 million, right? It's paint on a canvas. It matters who does it. Okay, Jack.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This a project I did last month with hardware, which is essentially a piss take of all this stuff, right? It's like these images are the backs of frames. Like there's 500 pieces that are all collectible. They have my name on it, and they're backdated to 1988 when I was born. But there's so much context here that I'm not going to be able to share. Essentially,
sorry.
Did it say that? You remember the Damien Hirst formaldehyde shark sheep? Did we ever talk about that? Like
I don't
you know those artworks I'm talking about, the shark in the formaldehyde tank? Or no?
Yeah, super. He took a live shark and like cut it.
Yeah, put it in this tank. Is like a $30 million artwork sold at auction. Like amazing piece of art. Anyway, he later found out that he was dating this work based on when he had the idea, not when the object was made. So like he would make these things in 2012, but then put the date as like 2004 or 2000. I forget the exact details of it. So it's like if you take that to its logical extreme, it's like the date of your birth is when this artwork was created, right? Like I can extrapolate that idea out way further than when the idea was had, because how do you like pinpoint exactly when you had an idea? Like take it all the way back to when the person was born. And anyway, this artwork is basically a commentary on that phenomena, which is like the fake provenance that comes with time in the real art world. To Trung's point, is like we're going to examine these oil brush strokes and date them Van Gogh or not. All of this digital infrastructure that exists, that's distributed, and there's 100,000 people around the world economically incentivized to maintain the truth around the inception date of this object. The argument here is like these digital objects, there's way more consensus around their value than physical objects. You can get to that consensus by paying experts to date the atoms that exist around it, but it's just way more interesting to me personally that these things can maintain this distributed consensus across the world, across the internet. They point to an image somewhere, but they, can amass way more attention, can move around a network way faster. To me, it's totally obvious why this would be a lasting medium for art, but the majority of the world does not agree in the short term,
Yeah,
which is good.
No, that's interesting, man. That's cool. Thanks for sharing that. Trung, do you want to go next real quick? I know, Jack, if you need to bounce in a minute, let us know. But Trung, do you want to share yours?
I want to jump on some stuff that Jack had mentioned about. I like the thing that he said about time, and this relates to how I use it. He said the extra 10% that you might get in ideation. AI for me is just a massive time saver. I will never publish something under my name that was written by AI for the reason I said earlier. I want my voice to be out in the world, because that's what's going to be left in 30, 40, 50 years when AI and these LLMs have taken over. I won't publish something that AI has written. Will I take ideas from AI? Yes, I will, because that's ideation right there. I use it for how Jack says. It's a tennis partner for me. And it's a huge unlock too, because having a tennis partner gets... Look, man, dude, you guys have all written. You have the feeling of writing. You sit in your chair, and you blocked off 2 hours, and
you start from scratch.
You start dicking around. You start scrolling through I go to ESPN. I go to Drudge Report. I go to Daily Mail. I open up like 10 tabs. I'm like, okay, I'll read 3, and then I'll start writing. Like you guys know the song and dance, right? But at least with AI, it gets you into the writing mode much faster, in my experience, and that saves me 30 minutes right there. 45 minutes of dicking around, right? And
how specifically, Trunk? You just because you're asking for what do you ask it to help you?
No, I'll sometimes give it an idea. I'll be like, here's 300. Give me a 300 word first draft on this. of this idea. Just anything to get me not dicking around, right? Just anything to get me in the zone of kind of working. And I mean, technically, the best way to do that is just shut off all the internet and use a typewriter. Seriously, right? I mean, that's what a lot of people actually go pen and paper. Like Neil Stephenson, the famous sci-fi author, he says he still does pen and paper because typing moves too fast, and he isn't actually able to think. When you're using pen and paper, you're thinking more. You see what I'm saying? It's like you're actually taking time to think. And but I use AI to get me into the zone of writing. And if I get stuck on an idea, again, a tennis partner helps get me unstuck. That moves it quickly, and it's a better search engine for me. I think it's superior to search for information.
Definitely is, yeah.
Right? It's superior. So it saves you time. Anything to not gum up the gears of writing. Because any type of friction, and I'm scrolling through X. You know what I mean? If there's a little bit of friction, I'm effing off doing what I'm not supposed to be doing. So it helps me on that front with time. And on the other side, because I don't have an editor, the difference between writing and editing is so massive. It's such a different mindset.
Completely different like mentality.
And it's just like, can you imagine? It's like, you don't want, like, you just finish something. You finish 1,500 words and you're like, I got to edit this thing now. And you know it's just riddled with mistakes. Even after
almost like you want it to be on another day completely.
Yeah, exactly. But now because I have this AI, I know exactly what the edit's going to be. I'm going to run it through probably 20 times. Find me every spelling mistake. Just keep doing it over and over and over again, right? Until it doesn't find anything. That, again, to Bilal's exact point.
So Trung, beyond spelling mistake, because I guess we had that on word processor for a long time. What are the other things?
It still doesn't catch everything, right?
Is it like beyond spelling though? Is it like, do you ask it specific stuff around like flow?
I don't want it to change. I used to, but I don't want the recommendations because that's going to make me the median writer. I want to be, if they'll actually recommend, I'll actually ask it, critique this essay. I also do that every time. I say critique this. They'll give me 10 bullet points and they'll be like, you have too many run-on sentences. I'm like, good. I ain't changing that shit. Like, they'll give me everything and I will actually be happy with the critiques because I don't want to be the mid-writer. You see what I'm saying? It's actually a positive.
Yeah.
So,
okay, cool.
The TLDRs, it saves me so much time. It gets me started, and the editing where I just fumble around for hours, just like thinking about whether or not I'm going to do it, just get it done. So it's been a huge unlock for me in that sense, especially as a solo writer. I'm not everyone. A lot of people have editors, but definitely massive time save. And I started using deep research from OpenAI.
How's that been? For what? Like, could you think of a task you use it for? Like,
yeah, so like you could basically have a Wikipedia article written for any niche topic with links. And I think it's an incredibly powerful tool. I think my concern is all I've done now is created 50 pages of something that's super in-depth. Now I still have to read it. You know what I mean? Like I still have to. So the problem is like my problem with deep research
help
now is
organize the different things, I guess.
It does help organize. My question becomes though, I need to find a way where it actually, it's not even about saving time, but like it's a huge level up in the sense of can it actually do it where it's not just information overloading me? To your point, Bilal. Is it structuring things well and finding the right information? But it's so powerful, right? Like, I'll give you an example. I want to write about what's the topic I want to write about? So I wrote 3 weeks ago about Garmin, right? The watch company, the GPS company. I didn't use deep research then, but I went back to use deep research to see how it compared to the article I wrote. And the way I wrote it was, you had mentioned earlier, is like you give it an idea of who you are. So I used O1 to write me an outline. I wrote to O1, I want to use deep research, and the topic I want to do is Garmin. Specifically, I want to talk about their research methods. Can you write me an outline to give to deep research? Right? So it does that. I read it once, and then I go, do you have any suggestions for me to add on top? It says, sure. Then you go to deep research, and the deep research itself asks you 10 clarifying questions, which is very good. And then it comes back to you 15 minutes later with 5,000, 10,000 words, which is insane, right? Which is better than anything I would have written at the age of 20. So it's it's a massive unlock. There's no question about it. People will be building one-person consultancies. You still have to vet on top. There's still a little bit of hallucination, but you can build a one-person consultancy, probably make $500,000 a year just using that and a $200 a month.
Trung, what about memes real quick? Do you use it real quick on that? Anything?
I'll ask it for the thing we mentioned earlier. Give me other ideas that are similar to like these things. Like, you know,
would you share the images though?
No. With Grok, I do. In Grok, I'll hit because you can ask a tweet. I'll be like, hey, give me like why is this one funny? Like if I don't understand the meme, and then it'll tell me. But yeah, that's
I like
my
having Grok into it. Like that's a real.
Yeah, dude, it's a really
sometimes
good
it's just such a long thing, and even copying and pasting somewhere else, it's just like you press it real quick.
Bro,
that's
hit
great.
us.
All right, and Jack, you all right for time for 5 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So this one, my one, I'll just give a few different examples. Thanks for sharing that, Trung. I'm just going to quickly read out a few lines from Andre Karpathy's thing on vibe coding. We just so we can cover the idea of it because it's related to what I was doing. So Andre said, "There's a new kind of coding. I call it vibe coding. When you fully give into the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget that the code even exists. It's possible because the LLMs, e.g., Cursor Composer or Sonnet, are getting too good. Also, I just talked to Composer with SuperWhisp, but whatever the tools are." Yeah. So I barely even touched the keyboard. So anyway, there's a whole long tweet here. But the whole idea, a lot of people have been using that phrase like vibe coding. It's essentially just not real coding. I'm using it interchangeably with kind of AI coding, to be honest. And so I'm going to share a few examples of mine. I'm obviously not very technical, or I can't really write code from scratch. But even if I just look back at my history of like when I was a kid playing around with tools on the internet, or like, you know, mess around with Photoshop or making websites 20 years ago, it was always just like finding stuff and like putting it together, and that's kind of perfect for this style of creating stuff. So I've been messing around quite a bit with Replit, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
And what I love, there's actually this video, I'll quickly share my screen for a second here. Did you guys see 1 second here, share my screen. Can you guys see this? This is Greg Brockman, obviously president of OpenAI. But someone had just shared, they paired OpenAI Operator with Replit Agent to build an app. So, you know, we can share the link to this in the show notes. But essentially it's speaking, you know, both of them are speaking to each other. I don't even do that. But just for me, I've got like a long list of, when I was trying to learn to actually do proper coding, I have like a long list of like little project ideas, stuff that I could try to make. And honestly, because I never got that far, they're just kind of sitting there. So I was trying to use that list and stuff that was coming up in my day to day that I could like automate. So for example, this is very unnecessary, but I'm using it for the purpose of learning how to use this stuff. Like every like few months, probably like realistically every 3 to 6 months, I take all my calendar events and I pretty much put them in Excel, and I specifically for my work, and I essentially like total up all the client work I do and all the different types of tasks. And some people go really, really crazy. If you're interested, I did a podcast on Creator Lab with the founder of Levels, like, you know, the CGM, continuous glucose monitor company. Yeah. And he had this really famous blog post where he goes next level and like categorizes all this stuff. I think that's a little overkill for most people. But for me specifically with like client sort of work, because I'm charging them on like a monthly basis, it's not related to my hours worked. So I really religiously track how much time I spend doing stuff. Because if it gets too long, I don't like that, and I want to make sure I've got that under control. So that's kind of the main thing I'm looking for. And this, I'm basically just automating that. So now, before I'd previously like download it all, have to go in Excel, total it all up, and have to do this continuously. The version that I'm making just using Replit is automated. It's like logs in with my Google Calendar, and it's kind of like a live dashboard. So I can see, oh, for this month, for this period of time, I spent this number of hours working on this client. I charged them X amount. So my effective hourly rate was this amount. And, you know, you can trend over time. How's that been going? And I started noticing things like, oh, I didn't realize I spent that much time on this in the past. I should really be outsourcing that or working with someone to be doing that for me. So that's the sort of stuff. Like, it's, again, I don't know.
It's helping
how
your
many people,
business.
Yeah, like a tangible thing. And honestly, just seeing, you know, I like data and like kind of looking at it anyway. So for me, it's just it's just like fun for me to be like, oh, I didn't realize I spent this amount of time or this little time on this. And just being able to manage that is quite interesting. The other kind of version of this I haven't completed yet, but I was messing around with, was creating kind of like Nomad List, which Nomad List, for people who've never used it, it pulls in a bunch of data sources for when you're basically digital nomad life, when you're going to,
is that from
you're trying
Level?
to pick a destination. Yeah,
that's from Levels.io. Yeah.
And it's really helpful, but for me, it's always been very much focused on, I'm trying to spend 3-4 weeks somewhere. Where should I go when the weather's good or whatever, or the cost of living is X? But for me, I'm getting to my next chapter of my life, which is probably a few years away, is being more settled down with hopefully kids in the future, and figuring out where to live has been something that me and a lot of my friends have kept talking about. So it's not exactly like I want to go somewhere for a month. There's other variables that aren't really covered in the Nomad List, and he could add these, but for example, schools is something you obviously think about with kids. Safety is another variable, and like all the different things I care about, like sunshine, climate, all those sorts of things, are kind of pulling that into one place. And I started creating like a questionnaire style thing. So if someone else was using it, it would be, someone would be able to say, you'd go through the questionnaire and be like, well, what are the things you care about? Because essentially everyone has different variables they care about. So it would essentially create like a tailored list for what is important to you.
Dude,
and
you should do that with
things.
deep research, man. Seriously.
That would be cool. Yeah, I need to test that out with doing stuff like that. So those are kind of like little fun projects, and all like automating stuff that's actually for my work. And then the other side, I mentioned to you guys, I've got my citizenship interview coming up soon, so where you have to do this test. So it's like 100 questions. So I'm like listening to a YouTube thing where they just keep going through it. There we go, USA on the sweater. But what I'm doing now is I'm taking the 100 questions and putting it in, and basically having an audio conversation, because you have to do this verbally, and so. Obviously, this stuff isn't like rocket science, but I will be saying to it, like, test
sounds
me
like
on
a $10 million SaaS to me, Bilal.
Yeah, it sounds like a vertical SaaS, yeah. But essentially, like, saying, like, ask me these questions randomly. I'm going to have to answer them. And then, it tells me if I got it right or not. And then over time, the ones I'm getting wrong, I'm like, just hone in on those, because I just need practice. I don't need to be...
Which ones?
It's a great idea.
The
ones I struggle with, you would be great at, are like remembering the dates of stuff. It's like because there's only a few you need to know, but there's like dates from the past, or how many people are in like the Senate versus... there's like 3-4 that are similar to that are random numbers that you need to remember. So it's stuff like that, pretty much.
That's great.
And yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think my actual work, obviously emails, writing. Actually, one last thing I'll mention. I had a call with this company that were like selling a company. I was kind of interested in learning more about it. So I like wrote all my notes. It would be even more helpful if I recorded it, but I didn't do that. But I had these crazy notes after, which was so disorganized. And I just threw it into Claude. And I was like, just based on this, and I uploaded the prospectus of the company for sale or whatever, and the profit and loss account, everything. And I was like, this is a company. Pretend you're a advisor for buying companies. Can you like look at what are red flags that I should be aware of? And it's taken like a 50-page PDF and all the Excel sheet and everything. And it's like, based on this, I would be looking out for this. And it was literally the sort of stuff that was coming up on the call. And then so it allowed me to really kind of go like that tennis partner thing and be like, I didn't think about that. And just in this example, it was like they needed to fix like a supply chain issue. And I was like, I don't really know much about this. Like, where would I need to go to learn about it? How long would it take? How much would it cost? And stuff like that. And that kind of ruled out straight away that this was like a big red flag, essentially. Mm-hmm. But in the past, that may have taken me crazy amounts of time to even sift through all that information. So yeah, that was quite helpful as well. So
dude,
that's a few from me.
I didn't realize how much you guys were using it, man.
This is very recent for me, honestly, because I feel like when it first came out, it was kind of cool, like a nice search engine. But now, as there's times part, and it's got better clearly as well.
It's like Jack said, the memory, the retention. The retention of your previous
the lock-in
chats,
on that is just filth, man. I'm going to be paying Sam Altman $200 a month till I'm no longer of this earth.
Are you paying for all of them, or what? What is it? Just OpenAI?
Yeah.
You play for Claude as well, yeah?
Yeah. Claude and I do. You know what? Weirdly, I kind of like the what is it? GPT-4 still. Like the O1 stuff is like overcooks it a little bit for my tastes.
Well, for the love of God, people, barely.ai, use code barely1. You get access to all these models
barely one now.
with massive. Well, that you know what people ask, man, how's barely going? Like these guys, listen, consumers an absolute knife fight, man. So like the business itself is moving into more, getting SMBs that need the private data. So the point that's coming up a lot.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
because of well, Jack kind of brought it up. You don't want this shit leaked.
Right? Yeah, you don't want DeepSeek all up in your company business.
DeepSeek knowing your deepest thoughts, right? But a lot of companies, obviously, at the end of the day, anything that's available on the public web, AI will get its hands on same way Google did. So much information is going to be tied within this company, the proprietary stuff. So listen, we still have the consumer, and people love the consumer side because they have quick access to all the models. And because these models, they're like Claude, although what Jack had said, like I've heard Claude's the best for coding, but O1 obviously is the reasoning. Claude hasn't released the reasoning yet. And Sam Altman had said they're going to get rid of this insane naming convention, and they're going to try to convert just to one thing, right? Like it's just so much is going on right now. O1, GPT Mini, GPT this, O4.
Yo, they need some new names, bro.
No, but at the end of the day, it's just going to be a reasoning model. Like that is going to be it, right? And but you still want certain models for certain things. Claude for coding, O1 for reasoning. Barely AI has got it all.
What's the adoption curve? Where are we, Bilal?
On said I get like early adopter.
Yeah, O1.
I think we're early adopter.
0 and O1 Pro and O3. That's like suspiciously left of the bell curve, no? You would think. You would hope.
I'm pulling this up on the screen for people. You're saying, oh, wait. Oh, come on. This is annoying. Guy, you could keep talking.
Well, I find it crazy how I never see this written about, that the context between conversations is not like 90% of the reason you use this stuff. I really don't like that to me is the primary distinction between my workflow in AI versus not. It's like it remembers everything. Like it's like going to work. Imagine you go to work with someone and they're like, "Who are you?" every morning. You get what I mean? And most of the models work that way.
That's a good point.
Wait, Jack, imagine going to work saying, "Who are you?" and then you tell them, "Hey, I need this done by 8, no mistakes."
That's funny. No mistakes.
So at least
every day.
At least it knows you, bro. Oh my dude, I'm dying.
That's a good point on the
every day you show up. No
That's
mistakes.
A great analogy.
No mistakes, please.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Anyway, Jack, that's what you're talking about, the adoption curve there, yeah? I pulled it up before.
Exactly that.
I feel we're definitely, honestly, it's the early adopters,
dude,
it's not even majority. I don't think it's
early.
Majority,
it's insane. Dude, people are still using fax machines.
Maybe sheer numbers of like total number of users you can put early majority. I don't think it's the active users like really using the level you just said.
Every day, there's no chance these people are using it every day, man.
I think it's 10%.
And I think it's got to be like half of that's got to be people just getting their homework done, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
God, bro.
That's another thing, right? Like the way we all studied and like did work. I mean, that is insane.
No mistakes, bro.
Made no mistakes again for this essay on American history or whatever. Like that is crazy.
Comparison between the American and French revolutions. No mistakes. A+, please.
You gotta add that to every prompt now, right? Like, just make no mistakes. Just let them know. All right, boys. I know we went a little over
amazing,
here.
Bro. Here,
we didn't get. I mean, I think you guys, people prefer this. What we talked about.
No, that was great, man.
The headline was Cursor hit 100 million. Good for them. And Amazon, Switzerland of AI. I think people get the idea. We'll see if we need to cover that, but people get the idea on that one. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
Peace.